Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining just in time with ExakTime. Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a safe and happy New Year. It's hard to believe we are in 2023 already, but here we are. So today we're going to go over security roles. So let's get into it. All right, so security roles. I get a lot of questions when I was in implementation on security roles. So I thought it'd be really good to really dive deep into security roles. Security, we have two separate security roles in the ExakTime system, and they work independently of each other. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to grasp. We have a mobile security role, and then we have a connect security roles. The connect, remember, is when you're logging onto the actual dashboard. Okay, so today we're going to look at the default security roles that's already built into the system on the mobile and the ExakTime Connect. We're going to add a security role for the mobile and also the ExakTime Connect, and then also edit a security role. All of these functions that we are going through are an administrative functions. You guys as administrators are the ones that really should control the security roles, adding, editing, updating, whatever the case may be. It should really be a administration function. So let's get into it and let's start looking at the default security roles here. And I apologize, I'm getting over a cold. I think it's going around. Like I thought I was safe and clear, and then all of a sudden it's really hit, so I apologize. All right, so default security roles. We give you a couple security roles for you guys to already deal with. You don't have to use, like for example, the supervisor mobile security role. We just give that to you as an example. If you don't use the supervisory wording, like if you have a foreman or a superintendent and you want to keep those languages throughout your company, then create a foreman security role, create a superintendent role. The supervisor, like I said, you don't have to use it. You cannot delete it, but it's just there and it gives you a good guideline. But like I said, if you want to keep your synchroncies within your company and create a foreman and superintendent, because those are the words that you're used to using. And when you see that security role, you'll be like, okay, this is what a superintendent does. This is what my foreman does. Then go ahead and do that. That's totally fine to add a security role. So the three that are defaulted, the administrator on the mobile app has unrestricted access, right? It has everything, and you really can't modify that security role other than the face front photo, because we want them to have the card launch, right? We want them to be able to do everything on the mobile side. Supervisor, obviously limited access, and you can give and take away certain accesses. And then the employee basically has no access, and we're just going to give them very basic access to the mobile app. Now we have the ExakTime Connect security role, which we only have an administrator and an employee. And we do that by design. Again, we want the administrator to have the card launch. This is where you log on to the dashboard. You can add an employee, you can add a location, cost codes, you can change your policies. You have the ability to do everything. Then we give you an employee default view. And a lot of people are like, what is that for? Mainly what that is for is if you have office employees and they're not out in the field, they're in the office, and you want them to clock in and out on the ExakTime mobile app, but you don't want them on the mobile app because they're in the office, then you can set them up on the Connect dashboard to where their dashboard is now their time card. Works very similar to the mobile app, but they don't have to download it on their phone. They could just go to their desk, clock in, clock out for lunch, back in, and it just works just like a time card. Okay, so again, both of these security roles, mobile and the Connect, work independently of each other. If I'm a field employee and I'm out in the field, I only need an employee mobile access security role. I do not need a connect security role. You can leave that at no access. And I think that's a lot where a lot of people think that they have to have access to both of the security roles. They don't. So if I'm in a field, all I need is a mobile security role, and that's it. You do not need to give me access to the dashboard because there's no reason for me to log on to the dashboard. I am out in the field. Okay, so I hope that clears that up a little bit. We're gonna keep drilling that probably through this whole presentation. So hopefully by the end of the day, you guys will be good. All right, so adding a security role, very simple. You see the two tabs at the top. You see ExakTime Mobile, and then right next to it, the ExakTime Connect. Make sure you're in the correct security role when you're adding a security role. So you're just going to add it. You're going to give it a name because we already give you those defaults. So you want to come up with another name like we were talking about before, your foreman or your superintendent. And then in a few minutes, we're going to go through all the definitions within that security role. So again, administrator role cannot be modified except for doing the face front photo. And this is really for you guys to test out the mobile app, kind of see all the bells and whistles that that mobile app has to offer, right? Then you can decide how much access you want your superintendent, your foreman, and your supervisors to have. Okay, so now we're in the actual security roles, and this is where if you're adding a security role, this is where we're going to go through these definitions. So the first one, the cloud service, this is more for when we had a desktop tracking system, and now we went cloud-based. So this really is going to go away very soon, so you really don't need to worry about checking that. Clocking in and out for others. If you guys attended the cruising groups, this is where you can have a foreman or superintendent clock in for other people. Remember on the mobile app that you don't have to have anybody clock in for anyone, because if I forget my phone, I could go to the foreman or superintendent. They log out and I use my unique PIN number and I can clock in on their phone like it was myself. So remember, two different functions there. Edit the clock in and out time. If you guys remember that if you do this, then the punches stay on the mobile phone and they have to manually sync it. So I usually recommend not to have this on. Change the device, clock, edit preferences, set job site, cost code, all this good stuff. This, in my opinion, is really an administrator function because this allows your supervisor or whoever to really add all those functions. And you would really want to discuss that with your supervisor if you want them to have that capability. Edit time records. This is if you do not send them right away, which we recommend you do. They can edit the time records, but remember, you're putting a lot of faith in your supervisors to edit time records of other employees. We have our crews and groups. This is where they can view their crews and groups, remember, based on their view sets, right? So if I have a crew of 5 and that's what my view set is, those are the only people I can see. Site Hub is a different way also to view my crew or group, and it will contain certain activities like field notes about the location. It will tell me who's clocked in. It will show me where they're clocked in. It's like the dashboard of the Connect is also on the mobile phone. So it gives you directions to the nearest hospital, restaurants, and so forth. So that's really just a viewing function. And then also showing wages. A lot of times we don't do this, but again, you have that discussion with your supervisors if you want to show the wage, and that wage does need to be in the employee profile on the Connect side, okay? All right, we're going through still the mobile function, right? We have a couple, we group them, right? So here, when it says add, this is exactly that. So if I check off cost code, I am giving that security role the capability of adding a cost code, adding an actual employee, equipment, expenses, field notes, and locations. So again, this is a conversation you need to have with your supervisors. A lot of times I only see maybe field notes and equipment checked here. Again, adding cost codes and employees and locations, that should really be an administration function on the dashboard side. Field notes are great communications. I would always suggest that you do have this enabled. Field Notes is a one-way communication from that mobile device to the dashboard where you can send a picture and or text regarding that location or a certain employee. Most of the time I've seen them tagged to a location if there's damage on the site, or if you want to use field notes as like a phase, like phase one, day one, middle of the project, end of the project, because a lot of people, they are a subcontractor and this is how they show their work when they're billing their clients. Field notes very powerful, and you can use them in a variety of ways. Same thing with equipment. If you want to track equipment, you can enter that as well and have your employees clock in and out of certain equipment so you can kind of see what you're using and where you're using. I've given you articles in here too so you can familiarize yourself with these different types of functions. So if you're not familiar, please click on those links that's embedded in this. And remember, this call is being recorded. So, if you can't attend or you don't remember, we will be sending this out. And don't forget to put your questions in the chat as we are going through this process here. Okay? All right, so still on the mobile side, right? So now if you have your schedule enabled, we do have a schedule feature. If you're not familiar with the schedule feature, please reach out to your account manager. If you don't know your account manager, please send me an email and I'll send you information. Schedules where you can schedule your employees for a certain job, and then we have notifications before the scheduled job and before the scheduled jobs to end to remind them, hey, you have a schedule coming up. You need to be at this location at this time. Um, and also you can, who is clocked in. This is a list of who has used your device. So again, if it's a supervisor and you're having people clock in and out on his device, he can see everybody that's clocked in on that device up for the last 12 hours. After 12 hours, it will reset, but it's a good way. So if Joe comes up to him and says, you know what, did I clock in? He can see, yep, you did clock in. We are good. And then you can also see how long somebody has been clocked in. Have they been clocked in for an hour, 2 hours, whatever the case may be. And then time record history is a little bit different. These are the clocking in and out on that device. So it will show a green half circle with a cent at the top, meaning that they clocked in and that record has been sent to the dashboard. If you see a red half circle with a cent, that means I clocked out and that record has been sent. If you see a full circle, red or green, that means the punch has been stored in that mobile device, but maybe it didn't have the greatest signal. Once it gets a signal, the punch is still stored in the mobile device. You haven't lost it. And then when the device does get strength, then it will send those records to the dashboard. Okay. All right, GeoTracker. If you are not familiar with GeoTracker, I did put a guide in here for you. This is, I like to call tracking my teenage kids. So if you do not have GeoTracker on, when they clock in, you get their location services, right? So you know where they're at. And then when they clock out, you know where they're at. But in between the in and the out, you are assuming that they are at the location doing the job. If you are suspecting that they are leaving the job, you can turn the geo tracker on. And what that does is it sends a signal to the mobile device every few minutes or so and pings that phone, and you get these little breadcrumbs, right? And then you can see exactly where that employee was from the moment they clocked in to the moment they clocked out. Obviously, when they're clocking out, we're not tracking them. But I do advise you to review some of the prerequisites of the geo tracker, because you do need to be clocking in and out on your own device. Obviously, the geo tracker will not work if you are using a kiosk situation. Okay, so make sure you check those out for some of the prerequisites. The mobile app does need to be open in the background, and we are pinging that phone. It's not so much a problem now because the phone batteries are much better than they were in the very beginning, but because we are pinging that phone constantly throughout the day, it does wear a little bit out on the battery. So just be aware of that. And then also taking the face front photo. This is where when they're clocking in and clocking out, they are taking a picture of themselves. So you know that that is who is clocking in and clocking out. And that comes through on the time card summary view. Okay. Okay, geofence restrictions. Okay, fun stuff. All right, so geofencing is that invisible radius that you can set either by default. You can do a default radius in the company settings, or you can set it by location level. So you can have a different geofence per location. Remember, we use Bing Maps. So when you are looking at the geofence, you have that little pin. If you need to move that pin, sometimes if it's a construction site, they might be parking way over here and then the construction site is over here. So move that pin to where you want that geofence to be situated. So we have a couple options for you. Again, on the mobile security role only, strictly talking mobile here, you can do a no fence warning or restriction. So what that means is if I'm outside the geofence, I'm still going to allow that employee to clock in. When I go to the dashboard and I hover, if you see a red circle with an eye in it, you hover over that red circle, it's going to tell you how far outside the geofence. Red means outside. If it's a green circle, means I am within that geofence area, okay? If I want to put a little bit more restriction on it, I can warn the employees saying, hey, you're outside the geofence, and I can ask them to add a comment as to why they're clocking in outside of that location geofence. Or I can restrict them entirely from not clocking in until they're inside that geofence. Now you see in bold, make sure you do consider any federal, state, or labor laws which restrict them from clocking in. So just make sure with whatever state you're in that you're abiding by those guidelines. So we have it both for clocking in and clocking out. So you can do two separate things, right? So clocking in, most people remember to clock in and they're at the location. So maybe you don't want any restrictions. But when you're introducing ExakTime, I think the most time people forget to clock out. So then this is maybe when you want to maybe warn them so they get used to using the system and clocking out before they leave the job site. Okay, and also include a geofence article for you as well, so you could get a little bit familiarized with this if this isn't sounding familiar to you. Okay, so now we've got the geo tracker. We went through what the geo tracker does. So if you check that, then we are going to ping that phone every few minutes. And then we also have an employee time card approval and a supervisor time card approval. Yes, your employees can view their time cards at any point in time during their payroll schedule. It could be a day in, 2 days, whatever the case may be. You can have the employee approve their time card. You can also have approve the time card with exceptions. I would advise against this, but there are some instances where this makes sense. Exceptions means maybe I forgot to clock out and it's at the end of the payroll or whatever the case may be. That's what exceptions mean. I forgot to clock out for lunch or something like that. That's when exceptions. And then you can also have a supervisor approve their view sets of employees' time cards as well. So you're having two QCs before it gets to your payroll or who's ever managing the ExakTime dashboard. So you've got the employee approval and the supervisor approval. Okay, so that was strictly mobile. Now we are going to talk strictly connect. Remember, if I'm a field employee, I do not need access to the Connect dashboard. The only people that need access to the Connect dashboard are your administrators, your supervisors, if you're having them approve the time card on the Connect dashboard. If you're having it strictly on the mobile, they don't even need to have access to the dashboard at this point. The only other people that might need access are your employees, your office employees, to clock in and out. So manage employees, this is where you have your supervisors where they can see their employees and their view sets. Custom fields if you're using custom fields, and then also your location view sets, custom fields. Most of these, if you're doing a supervisory function, these are just going to be at no access other than the manage employees and employee view sets. But if you're having like maybe a supervisor that's like your backup, then maybe you want him to be able to view or access, and you can see you can have them access all or just view, edit, and delete. So you pick what you want this role to accomplish. And that's the first thing you need to ask yourself, what do I want this person to be able to do and not be able to do? And then when you are having a supervisor and you want them to log on to the dashboard and approve time cards, then you do want the time card summary details at least to view. If you have it edit or at and also delete, there is a audit trail report because they're going to have their own separate username and login. So you can run an audit report and it will show you every time record that they modified. So there is a audit trail if you're going to allow your supervisors to edit time records. They can view their own time records. Now the clock in and out, this is for your office employees. So you want them to have access to the Connect clock in and out. That's where they can clock in and out on the dashboard and they don't have to download the mobile app. And then you have the clock in for, again, this is maybe for a supervisor in the office, maybe somebody's computer isn't working and you want them to clock in for somebody. Works the same way as the mobile side, but on the Connect. Okay, bulk time entry. This is really for an administrator function. Usually this is at no access unless they are like a backup. This is where you can do bulk time like a holiday where you can give everybody 8 hours and you can do it in one go. Really great feature. If you're not familiar, don't forget to visit the support site and look up bulk time. Really awesome feature. This is a time card approval for if you're having a supervisor, you want to check the employees because they are going to then be on the Connect and approving time cards. Closed pay periods should only be available to the administrator. This is just like your payroll where you're closing the pay period so your supervisors cannot make any more edits or changes. If the pay period's closed and they do make some edits, it goes into quarantine time. The reason we do that is if you're exporting your time records into a payroll system that we integrate with, you don't want people messing with your payroll. So this works the same way. So if they make any edits, it will go into quarantine time. That the time is still there, or if somebody approved their time card and they needed to clock in again because they're working overtime, that time goes into quarantine time. The way you get that out of quarantine time is to open the pay period, and then those time records then will go into that pay period that you had just closed and then you reopened. Okay. Approving time cards that contain exceptions. Again, exceptions if I forgot to clock in and clock out. Usually this is at no access because you want to fix those before you approve those times, right? Okay, now we have our security roles that we've created. There are two separate ways that you can add an employee to a security role. The first one is when I'm actually at the security role, I can go into let's say I have a supervisor and I have an employee now that I want to bring into the supervisory role. So when I'm on the supervisory role, it's going to show me everybody that's and what security the role they're into. So if I check like Chris Coleman and I'm under the administrator for this example, whatever security role he was in previously, it automatically puts him into that new security role. Very simple, very easy way to move people in and out of security roles. Only the administrator really knows the security roles, right? As me as an employee, I don't know. I'm not controlling that function. You as an administrator are. So this is one way that you can move people between security roles, either for the ExakTime Mobile or the ExakTime Connect. Works for both. Remember, Mobile and Connect, they work independently of each other, okay? And the second way is if you actually go into the employee's profile, you're clicking on the edit pencil. And this is also when you're setting up your employees for the first time, right? So you go down, you'll see two separate accesses. You see the mobile security access, then you see the connect access. Remember, work very independently. If I'm a field employee on the connect security role, it needs to stay at no access. You've got to ask yourself, does this employee need to log on to the dashboard? If the answer is no, then keep it at no access. Okay. Couple things that you do have to put in when you're assigning security roles. For the mobile, you have to have a unique 4 to 10 digit PIN number per employee on the mobile side. If you're going to have them log on to the Connect, you need a username and you need an email address. Now, here at Okoro, if you have other modules, we really want the username to be the same across all modules, and we really stress to have that as their email address because an email has to be unique, right? So if there is another John Smith floating in the Okoro somewhere, then you can't use that. So that's why we really want to keep your username, your email, because then if you have access to other modules, you can then easily go between modules. You will need an email address. Once you hit save, it will fire off an email verification to that individual so they can set up their passcode. And again, username will be their email address. Okay, so two separate ways to assigning security roles. And again, separate, mobile, and then we have the ExakTime Connect. So I hope this has cleared this up a little bit. Before we get to questions, next just-in-time training will be on the 25th, and we're going over time card approvals. As you see, you need to set up some of your security roles in order for this to happen. So this is why we went through security roles first, and now we're going to build on that for time card approvals, for employee time card approvals, and also for supervisor time card approvals. So once we kind of mastered the security roles, again, separate, mobile, connect, independent, then hopefully time card approvals then won't be such a big question because we get that a lot as well. So this will tie in nicely to our security roles and then our approvals. Okay, so I know I've taken up a lot. Was there any questions?
We do not have any questions so far.
Awesome. I hope you guys really, excuse me, go into those links that I provided for you. If there's any definition that you are unfamiliar with, that you're like, what is GeoTracker? I want to know a little bit, or what's the geofence? Don't forget when you're on the dashboard to go to help and then support site. Support site is a great way for you to look up any type of definition, any type of feature that we have on the mobile side as well as the Connect side. And it's a great source of information. So don't forget to rely on that. But again, if you want more information on anything, the scheduling, anything else like that, don't forget to contact your account manager. That's what they're there for. And I want to thank you guys for attending again today. Love having you guys, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks for time card approvals.